The worst time to start an LLC is when you're scrambling because something just went wrong. The right time? That's what we're figuring out today. Before we talk about timing, let's be clear about what an LLC is actually protecting. An LLC creates a legal wall between you and your business. If your business gets sued, that lawsuit stops at that wall. Your car, your home, your personal savings account, all of that stays on the other side of the wall, protected.
You shall not pass!
That's the core function. Everything else about an LLC is secondary to that one job. So the question isn't, do I need an LLC? It's, do I need that wall right now? And the answer depends entirely on how much risk you're actually carrying. Let's say money is changing hands. Disputes happen, a client says you didn't deliver, a customer says your product hurt them, a vendor says you breached a contract. The more people you're doing business with, the more exposure you have. And without an LLC, that exposure is personal. Every dispute, every claim, every lawsuit comes straight at you. Not a business entity, you.
Not me, not Hermione, you.
The risk here isn't hypothetical. The risk grows as your business grows. One client is pretty low risk, but 10 clients with 10 different contracts, that's a different conversation completely. Also, the risk changes depending on what type of work you're doing. There's a big difference between someone doing freelance writing who might only have to deal with a contract dispute and someone doing home repairs where a mistake could lead to a lawsuit over property damage or injury. The higher the physical, financial, or legal stakes of that work, the more that wall matters and the sooner you should build it. This next one catches a lot of people off guard. If you're signing a lease, a client agreement, a vendor contract, or really any sort of business document as yourself, you are personally responsible for everything in that contract. Every obligation, every penalty, every dispute that comes out of that contract lands on you as an individual.
You.
When your business signs a contract, your business is on the hook, not your personal assets or your personal savings account. If something goes sideways with a vendor or a client, the legal exposure stays on the business side of that wall. And that's a really important distinction, especially as you grow and your contracts get bigger and more complex. Here's something most people don't realize until they're already trying to land a bigger deal. A lot of larger companies and investors simply won't work with you if you don't have a business entity. Not because they don't like you, but because their legal and finance teams require it. They need someone to put on contract, they need a business bank account to send money to, they need that LLC to be there before the conversation can even move forward. Same goes for investors. If you ever want outside funding, investors want to see a legitimate business entity in place. An LLC signals that you're serious, that you've taken the steps to make this real, that there's an actual entity for them to invest in. You could have the best pitch in the world, but if you're operating as a sole proprietor, a lot of doors just don't open. So those are the situations where an LLC is a clear yes, but not everyone is in those situations yet. And starting an LLC before you actually need one can cost you more than it's worth. Now let's talk about when you can probably wait. Let's say you don't have a business yet, you just have an idea. Paying annual LLC fees to maintain an entity that isn't actually doing anything can be premature. Wait until you're actually generating income or are signing contracts. Some states like California charge an $800 annual franchise tax to every LLC, regardless of whether you're profitable. So if you're making $2,000 a year on a side project, that fee alone eats 40% of your income. The protection an LLC offers is real, but so is the cost. So make sure that cost makes sense for where you're at right now. Here's the nuance. If you're a 1099 contractor working solely for one company doing straightforward work, the liability risk is typically lower. That company typically has insurance that covers the work that you do for them. So if something goes wrong and a lawsuit happens, that lawsuit would usually go to them and not you. However, and this is important, you can still be held personally liable if you act negligently, violate the law, or if your contract states that you're personally responsible. So check your contract and ask the company about their insurance coverage. If it's solid and your work is pretty low risk, you're probably good to wait. But if there's any ambiguity, an LLC is worth considering. Basically, if your biggest work drama is a passive-aggressive Slack message from that one coworker, you'll probably find a way. Next, if what you're doing is genuinely just a side thing, like you make candles and sell them to your friends, or you do occasional photography for friends and family, you're probably okay to wait. You're not signing contracts, you're not taking on any major clients, and the financial exposure is pretty limited. But here's where people get into trouble. What starts as a hobby can quietly turn into a real business without you noticing. You start selling more candles, someone asks you to do their wedding photos, you take on a few more clients. Suddenly, you're making real money, signing agreements, and dealing with real customers, and you've been operating this whole time without any protection in place. So, the question to ask yourself honestly is, do I want this to stay a hobby? If the answer is genuinely yes, you're probably fine waiting. But if there's a small part of you that dreams of scaling this into something real, start that LLC now. Don't wait until the business has outgrown the protection. Here's the thing that nobody is telling you. The decision of when to form an LLC is really just about how much risk you're willing to personally carry. The more contracts you're signing, the more clients you have, the more money is flowing through the business, the more that wall matters. Keep watching because I want to make sure that if you do form an LLC, you're actually getting the protection you're paying for. Forming the LLC is step one. Step two is actually maintaining the separation between you and your business. That means having a separate business bank account. It means not paying your personal expenses with your business account. And it means filing your annual report on time every year so that your LLC stays in good standing. Because courts can and do look through LLCs when the owner is treating their business like a personal piggy bank. That's called piercing the corporate veil. Sounds dramatic, I know. And when that happens, that wall disappears and your personal assets are fair game. In other words, if you're Venmoing yourself rent money from your business bank account, that wall doesn't work. Just don't do that. If you have clients, you're signing contracts, or you're trying to grow into bigger opportunities, form the LLC now. The risk you're carrying as an individual is real, and the wall is worth building before something goes wrong. If you're pre-revenue, working as a low-risk 1099 contractor for a single company, or genuinely just doing hobby-level work with no growth plans, you can wait. But keep checking in with yourself as things change. The moment your situation changes, so should your answer. At Northwest Registered Agent, we help form your LLC the right way, with a registered agent in your state, a separate business address, and all the compliance reminders so nothing slips through the cracks. Link in the description if you're ready. And if you still have questions about your specific situation, drop it in the comments and we'll help you figure it out.